and today we'll be learning about two of the most influential pop artists in history. Andy Warhol, we'll be discussing some of his works and styles, and Claes Oldenburg and some of his works and styles. Let's get her started, boys. Andy Warhol, painter and filmmaker. People that have never been to a museum before know who Andy Warhol is. He's a cultural icon and the godfather of pop art movement. He was born on August 6, 1928 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, USA. Later on, he contracted chlorea, a rare nervous system disease, at the age of 8, which left him bedridden for months. In this time, his mom gave him his first drawing lessons. He always kind of had to use his art to survive and make a niche for himself, and he always was trying to use his art to woo and gain approval. In 1949, he moved to New York City to pursue a career as a commercial artist. Warhol made his money as the most successful illustrator in New York. Advertising for him was really an important medium because it was a language that people could understand. In 1952, he had his first solo exhibition at the Hugo Gallery. Warhol was at the forefront of the emerging pop art movement, where artists used everyday consumer objects as their subjects. By taking something like Campbell's soup cans, something everyone already knew about, and now saying that it is art, that sort of opened up a lot of doors for people to look at what could be art differently. In 1964, Warhol began operating out of a silver-painted, foil-draped studio called The Factory. If you were interesting, you were hanging out at the factory. Part of what makes Warhol so interesting is his ability to attract really creative and interesting people around him and then be inspired by them and pull from those ideas and turn it into his own work. Warhol was also one of the first artists to exhibit video as an artwork. He was famous for being a major presence in the New York nightlife scene. He was a fixture at Studio 54, where he was surrounded by celebrities. It was said that you knew you were at a good party when Warhol showed up. Warhol died on February 22, 1987, and in 1994, Andy Warhol Museum opened in his hometown. Once a social outcast, Warhol rose to become one of the most legendary artists of the 20th century, whose influence still continues to grow. Warhol was a man of many talents. He was a fashion illustrator, painter, printmaker, sculptor, magazine publisher, filmmaker, photographer, and archivist of his time. His early paintings drew on his experience as a commercial illustrator and appropriated motives from advertising and comics. Pop art, which was what Andy was known for, is art based on modern popular culture and the mass media, especially as a critical or ironic comment on traditional fine art values. This 72 by 52 inch piece done in oil on canvas was complete in 1962, currently owned by the New York Museum of Modern Art in New York, USA. Andy Warhol painted a number of soup cans either individually or in groups. When asked why, Warhol once replied, "Because I used to drink it. I used to have the same lunch every day, for 20 years, I guess, the same thing over and over again. Someone said my life has dominated me. I like that idea." This piece was painted by hand, assisted by stencils. A close look reveals the fact that the cans are not identical, nor are they evenly spaced. The bottom row is cut off, suggesting that they continue beyond the confines of the canvas, which leads to another aspect of the work, Warhol's interest in machine-like processes such as mass production. Remember kids, if you want to be as great as Andy, you gotta eat your Campbell's soup. This is an example of another piece done by Andy Warhol called 8 Elvises. Thank you very much. Next I'll be talking to you about Claes Oldenburg. He's an American sculptor best known for his public art installations. Typically they featured very large replicas of everyday objects. He was born January 28, 1929, in Stockholm, Sweden. In 1959, Oldenburg started to make figures, signs, and objects out of paper mache by stacking rough materials and objects in plaster and enamel. These were based on items of food and cheap clothing. Oldenburg's first show in May 1959 included three-dimensional works and was held at the Judson Gallery on Washington Square. During this time, artists described Oldenburg as brilliant due to the reaction that pop artists brought to a dull, abstract, expressionist world. In the 1960s, Oldenburg became associated with the pop art movement. He created many so-called happenings, which were performance-related art productions of his time. This piece is called Clothespin. It's a 45-foot tall sculpture made of Corten steel with a stainless steel spring on a concrete base. Built in 1976, it is now part of the Museum Without Walls audio program. It was commissioned by developer Jack Wolgan as part of the Redevelopment Authority 1% program. After it was installed, cab drivers, pedestrians, art enthusiasts, and local office workers admired it or joked about it, and it soon became a Philadelphia landmark. Claes Oldenburg has been noted for his attempts to democratize art. Located outside of a subway entrance in Center City, between the two office towers of Center Square, rises a gigantic clothespin. Facing City Hall Tower with its sculpture of William Penn, the clothespin has the jolting and humorous effect of a familiar object seen out of context. This witty monument was commissioned by developer Jack Wolgan as part of the Redevelopment Authority Percent of Art program. This piece by Oldenburg is called Two Cheeseburgers with Everything.
You know what, Clay? After a long day of work, I also like two cheeseburgers with everything. See, Clay, this is why you're the best.
Major key.